Hey, and welcome to Agri-Talk. You are watching us live from atop the broadcast center on the University of Rio Grande in the metropolis of Rio Grande, Ohio. Today, it's got Mike Thompson and Duane Rigsby, and we're going to be talking about plants. Since Agri-Talk, it's about living things.
Right. Yeah, we're going to talk about plants and specifically things like vineyards and grapes and berries of sort, and even something called super berries now.
Super berries?
Yeah, super berries.
Do they make you do super things?
Well, I think they do super things to you, yes, if you eat enough of them.
Okay, that sounds cool. Who do we have with us today?
Well, today we have Ryan Slaughter. He's with the OSU South Centers over in Piketon, and I think he'll introduce us to all these great berries and such. So, Ryan, welcome.
Thank you.
And let's start off a little bit with what's your title over there? Tell us what's your title, how long you've been there, and kind of what you're doing now. You know, just as a general stuff, and then we'll get into your actual research projects.
Okay, well, like you said, my name's Ryan Slaughter. I'm a horticulture research assistant at OSU South Centers. I've been there for a little over 2 years now, the best 2 years of my life.
Awesome.
Yep.
Awesome.
Some of the research that we've worked on in the past, all been on my side anyways, with small fruits. That's including blueberries, blackberries, raspberries, some funny ones that you might recognize, currants and gooseberries, even wine grapes.
Wine grapes?
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
Now I know there's all kinds of different varieties of wine grapes and such. Are you experimenting with ones we don't know of, or just ones you've heard of? You're just doing them different ways, or what?
Yeah, so with our wine grape vineyard, we receive a grant yearly from Ohio Grape Industries. That's just here in Ohio by the name. They receive money every time you buy a bottle of wine. So many cents on the dollar goes to this committee. And this committee is a group of people organized together that are either a part of the wine industry or grape growers industry here in Ohio. And they allot so much money towards research. So there are 3 research vineyards in Ohio. One of them is in Kingsville, Ohio. That's up close to the lake, or right on the lake. There's one in Worcester, Ohio at our OARDC campus. And then there's one on South Centers campus here in Southern Ohio. So we represent the sort of the below 70 region with our vineyard and all the southern growers for the Ohio wine grapes. So what we do there with that vineyard, yes, you mentioned different varieties. All these varieties are generally well known among growers here in Ohio, but what we're looking at specifically is how well they do in southern Ohio, because we have different soil types, different climate than they would in northern Ohio.
Yeah, I was going to ask you what the challenges are. What are the challenges you're trying to overcome? Is it the freezing winters that they need to get over, or the hot summers, or the whatever types of soil? What is it?
There is a lot of challenges for the state of Ohio and then the southern Ohio region. We have very heavy clay soils, and grapes, they don't like, heavy clay soils, they hold water really well, and grapes don't like that. They don't like what's called wet feet. So
it's strange to think that such a succulent, moist grape likes a dry soil. You know, you would think it would. It needs that moisture.
The other way around,
right? Yeah. Actually, the more drought conditions we have in Ohio, they say a good year for a grape grower is a bad year for everybody else.
Yeah. This year was not good.
Yeah.
This was a very wet summer.
Yeah.
And I know a few grape growers who are just like this year was not worth it.
Yeah, very wet earlier on in the summer. It did help us that we didn't have very much rain in the end of the summer. We ended up seeing some nice grapes come off of our plants. But that was a challenge earlier on in the summer because there's a lot of disease that's created by high moisture content in the plant canopy and in the soils. So anytime we have a lot of rain like that, then you have to manage your diseases a lot more, especially with grapes, because those can wipe out a crop of grapes for sure.
You do that more with chemicals or trimming back the leaves to give them more air?
Everything, yep. We have a very stringent chemical program, a fungicide program that we put on every week, 7 to 10 days, and then as the season goes on, we'll lengthen that to 14 to 21 days. But then also cultural practices. So we'll come in and do some what's called shoot thinning or leaf removal. So you'll remove leaves from around the grape clusters, and what that does is it lets sun penetrate in there, it lets air movement, and then that just gets the moisture out of there. The sooner you can get the moisture out of the canopy during the day, the better for that kind of stuff.
I thought maybe you tended your grapes and cutting and just irritating them to make them more whiny.
Yeah, that's exactly what we do.
Just keep aggravating them, don't you?
Yeah. They would be aggravated for all the stuff that we do to them. Yeah, we stress them quite a lot by all the pruning and everything that we do.
So in Southern Ohio, is there a better crop to grow? Is there a better
variety
of them?
Of wine grapes?
Yeah.
We have 2 red grapes on our site that do really well for Southern Ohio. One of them is Chamberson. And the other is Noire. Both make very good wine. I believe Chamberson tends to be better as a red blend that you would see with wines. Noire makes a good wine by itself, but also I think could be used for a blend.
Where do these come from? Are they Ohio natives?
No, these are French-American hybrids.
Okay.
So these are hybrids that have brought in, and they do well in our area. They're very winter hardy. Some of them are a little more disease resistant than others. For example, so you have basically 3 different types of grapes. Your French-American hybrids. You have your American varieties, which you would recognize as Concord, Niagara, those kinds of things. Those do really well here in the
That's
States.
what you commonly see, jellies and that
Jellies
type
and
of stuff.
juices, but those can also be made into wine. And then you have another type of wine grape called Vinifera. And the challenges that we see with the Vinifera varieties, they're not as cold hardy as some of our the French American hybrids and the American hybrids. So as you two know, the last couple winters that we've had with the polar vortexes, we've lost Ohio grape growers have lost a lot of Vinifera varieties. Those cold winters damage the canes, and then they just can't grow once those canes are damaged. So that's one thing that we do with our vineyard. A new project that we'll be working on with that is putting these Vinifera varieties under what we call high tunnel structures. So it's a very simple, unheated structure with metal bows that's covered in plastic. And the plastic just helps protect them from cold winters. So we're going to see how well we can grow these grapes, or if we can grow them under these tunnel structures. So we're going to be putting in some new stuff.
I think we have a picture of that. What's the difference between a high tunnel and a greenhouse?
Just that. It's the technology that goes into it. High tunnels are very low technology. Like I said, generally they're made out of metal and plastic. They are all enclosed in the winter. You close them up. And most of the time they're unheated. Now you can.
Would a greenhouse be heated then?
A greenhouse is generally always heated. Yes.
Okay.
So the idea.
We've got one up there now.
Yeah, this is a good picture. The picture that you're seeing here is there's blackberries. Those are blackberries in a high tunnel production. So at the very end of it, you'll see is kind of an opening there. When it starts to get cold in late November, December, that will be shut down, and then any kind of cold temperatures will be locked outside. Just a good example, we did some, you see down in the sort of the middle of the picture, there's a little white box there on a post.
Right.
That's a data logger. It measures temperature and humidity. So we compare outside temperatures with inside these tunnels. And a very good example we had last year, negative 22 degrees outside temperatures at the South Center site, and inside that tunnel it just dropped below 0 degrees. And when you're talking plant life right there, that's a big difference.
That's a make or break time.
Big difference. So with these blackberries in particular, we had a crop of blackberries on these in the tunnel this year, and then outside there was nothing. Those canes were killed by that cold temperature.
And I noticed the frogs in my pond were too.
Is that right?
I think there was a lot less frogs in the world after this past winter.
Yeah, hard winter for anybody.
Yeah, I think so. I think it made a lot of stuff.
Yeah, some of my fish
Pass
didn't
on.
make it.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of a shallow,
Yeah.
garden pond. But
So what else are we doing besides wine grapes? Other
berries.
Berries. You mentioned before you had a couple of grant projects. What's the second one we wanted to talk about? Some kind of raspberries, blackberries?
Yeah. So, like I said before, all of our projects at South Centers are grant funded. We have a grant that we've been working on for a little over a year now that we received from the Ohio Department of Agriculture. The official title of it was Superberry Grant. So we've had crops that I mentioned in the past, blueberries, raspberries, blackberries, that we've done old projects on. We were able to incorporate those crops in underneath this grant so we can continue to look at those berries. And then we were also brought in 3 new berries that are new to Ohio, not necessarily new to the States. And the idea being there is that the whole purpose of this is to introduce growers, whether future or growers who are operating now,
Or current,
to new niche crops so they can diversify their business, because in this type of market, the more diverse you are, the better. So those 3 crops are Aronia berry, Aronia berry, elderberries, which are native to the North America, but these are more commercially viable elderberries that have higher production means.
what do you do with an elderberry?
Elderberries are generally not good for fresh fruit because they're very astringent or bitter,
Tart or whatever.
very tart. They're more for processed products, so you can make jams or jellies out of those. You can even use them as a coloring agent. They're very, very dark pigmented, so they're very, very deep purple or even black colors. So you can, like for wine example, say you want to make a red wine, and you've got some grapes like a Concord and a Niagara that's a little bit lighter in color, but you want a real deep, dark color. So you can cut that with some elderberry juice to bring that color up, to darken it up, and that's for aesthetics, to make that more appealing to consumer's eye.
How about the other one you were right before?
Aronia berries, the same thing, processed product. All 3 of these new crops, the third one I wanted to mention is Chinese Goji berries.
Okay.
But all 3 of these are more for processed products, or whether you're making jams or jellies, muffins. You can make muffins and add these fruits to them.
Yep.
Health food juices. So the wordage behind Superberry is the idea that all these fruits are high in antioxidant content.
So is that part of the superfoods group?
Superfoods, exactly. That all this stuff that is really good for you, has anti-cancer agents in it. So that's the idea behind these fruits that we're looking at. So what we're doing is looking at production means. Are they even good for Ohio? Some of these new berries, can people grow? Marketing techniques, where can people sell these things and how they can sell them? And then the chemical level of these fruits, their sugar content, their antioxidant content. So we're sending these fruit off, having them analyzed in labs up on our main campus in Columbus for that antioxidant content, to see, okay, are there fruits with more antioxidants, the varieties, and then can we affect those antioxidant contents through cultural methods, things that we're doing in the field, to make that a better product in the end.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, but what I've always originally heard was that blueberries was the super fruit, if it would. But now there's such a whole bunch of them now that really cover the word super fruit or super variety.
Yeah,
super
exactly. Any fruit or food that has a very dark pigment, a very dark color, so blues, blacks, even reds fall under that category.
Sure.
That's why we're looking at raspberries. They still have antioxidants that are good for your health. Even grapes. So and wines, even for that matter, some of those chemical properties can carry over. That's why these things are good for you.
Do they have a high sugar content?
It depends. Obviously, your wine grapes are going to be higher.
So I was thinking,
sugar
could you
content.
make wine out of elderberries
Definitely.
and everything else?
Yep.
So, I've heard of elderberry wine, I think.
Yes, exactly.
That was from some great-grandparents, I think, typically.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, I've heard it. They've made them in the past.
Cool.
Yeah.
There's actually, it used to be, or I'm not sure if they're still producing it or not, but Shade Winery here in Southern Ohio, in Athens, I believe, they had an elderberry wine that they were producing and selling. So I've been told, I've never had it myself, that it's very tasty. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had rhubarb wine. That's one of my favorites.
Rhubarb.
Yeah, you can make
Anything with
wine,
sugar content.
yep, wine out of any type of fruit. Yes, yeah. It is all it. If it has less sugar, though, you have to supplement it with
something,
some kind of sugar, higher sugar. Yeah.
Now, is there any talk about, I don't know, making a new hybrid of these superberries, or are we just going to concentrate on just what we have currently, you know, that's known products?
Yes, so the work that goes into producing specific varieties of these crops, there's a lot of good people out there that's doing that work, and there's already commercially viable plants out there. So we're just tapping into that market that's already there and bringing those, seeing which varieties do best here in Ohio. Yeah, we probably won't do any work as far as variety work. We're just looking at what's out there and what's going to do best for here in Ohio.
Well, that's good. What with that, then, what is some of the results? Have you gotten results yet, or is that still in the stage? Obviously,
still in the stage. Like I said, for the Superberry grant, this was our first year, so we're coming out of the summer now. We spent all summer collecting fruit, collecting leaf samples, collecting other data that we're looking at, and that fruit has just been sent off to labs to be analyzed further. Yeah. So preliminary data right now, you know, we're still waiting for some results to come in so that we can plug stuff in, and then we'll have next year also to be able to collect and look at that stuff. Yeah.
How do these other berries, you know, how do they compare with grapes? I know when you plant a grape plant, it takes 3 to 5 years for them to produce. Or at least a decent crop. Is it the same with these other berries?
Yeah, very similar. With blueberries anyway, it's the same idea. You should let them establish their roots. That's the whole idea for 3 years. Blackberries, a couple years. Raspberries, same thing. And with elderberries, they're a little bit different. They're very vigorous. They will actually form what's known as a hedgerow, so they'll grow through their roots. Once you plant them in a certain area, they'll send out new shoots, and they're sending up new stuff every year. You'll get a crop off them the first year. It's not going to hurt them, but they're very vigorous plants. Aronia berries, they're same thing with them, kind of similar to blueberries in their growing. You want to wait a few years before you get anything. Any type of fruit, it's an investment that you're not going to see a return for a couple years. So as a grower, a new grower, an existing grower will know that, but a new grower needs to understand that once they make that initial investment, it's going to be a few years before you see any type of return from that. Yeah.
Where do you get the plants from?
From different nurseries around the states. Generally, we try to maintain a relationship with nurseries that are close to Ohio, or at least in this sort of Great Lakes region, or even in the Midwest. We've worked with Missouri in the past with our elderberries, just because right now they are the self-labeled epicenter for elderberry production. So they have some nurseries out there, and then also some research. So we collaborate with them so that we're not repeating research and stuff, but we're able to build on top of that. And then other nurseries we deal with, or some are on the East Coast, or some are right here in the Midwest, close to Ohio. But generally, we try to stay within this area because they're growing plants. They're able to make recommendations on what's going to grow well in our area anyways, because they're growing it in our area. For example, I spoke with a nursery owner this morning about a potential new project that we're going to be working with. And he was kind of able to steer us, not necessarily in a different direction, but just change gears just slightly based on his recommendations. these nursery people, they do research themselves. They're up on current trends. They're
It's in their
traveling.
best interest to do it well.
What's that?
It's in their best interest
Yes,
to do it
exactly. Yeah. Otherwise, they wouldn't be selling their product.
well. Right.
So, you know, these guys, him anyways, he's traveled overseas, looked at what's doing well over there, how they're growing it differently than we might be doing it, and how things are more successful. So he was able to make some suggestions for us, and then we'll take that feedback and then we'll implement it there at South Centers so that we can make Ohio a stronger production for fruit.
Nice.
What kind of land would you need? Would it be the same land as you might have for grapes? You know, one of the problems with southern Ohio is it's very hilly.
Yeah.
Is that a good place for berries and such?
Yeah, and I would say that's why South Centers is such a unique facility, because we sort of sit, you know, our area is very flat where we sit, but we sit on the cusp of what's the Appalachian foothills. So a lot of the people that we're working with are from that area, from that region. And then our stuff is particularly suited for that type of area, because those aren't areas where people are going to be raising grain crops.
Right. You need long, flat
Yeah,
expanses.
exactly. So northern Ohio,
Yeah.
northwest, that's where you see a lot of grain production. So in order to help people who are in agriculture production down here, you have to really go for these niche crops, these high value crops, which are fresh fruit. Some other stuff that we're working on there at South Centers is hops production, which I believe Tom Harker came and talked about.
Yep.
So the idea being, this region is difficult to produce anything on a major scale,
Right.
thousands of acres.
So with an acre of corn versus an acre of berries, is that a better return on growing berries than corn?
Oh, for sure, yeah. A lot more labor intensive. Fruit production is much more labor intensive than corn or any kind of grain production. But
There's some
the
upsides. You
return-
don't need machinery.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
you also you're
Machinery's
selling
much
that
smaller.
quart or pint of berries for $6 or $7 at prime times versus you're selling a whole big bushel of corn for $5 or something like that. You know.
Exactly, yeah.
You're getting that high dollar value out of a small value of crop.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
the idea there is that there are differences in returns. Corn versus berry crops is in the thousands of dollars versus acres, or on acres. So that's because, you know, people in this area can only produce on 5-10 acres, so
Right.
they want to make the most money that they can on that small, and you can do that with these fresh fruits, these niche markets, this stuff.
Now, I think we've got some other pictures you brought. If we can get to those. It's on DDR1. Here we go.
Yeah, this is just a picture of some raspberries that I took. We've got a couple different projects we've worked on with raspberries. This one was taken in a high tunnel that I described earlier. What we were looking at there, we had 4 different varieties of a fall-bearing raspberry that we were looking at. We're comparing field production, which is a traditional way of producing raspberries, just right out in the field, uncovered, and then these were under a high tunnel. So those get buttoned down in the winter and then protected from the cold.
Right. So that's the reason for the high tunnel in that situation. It doesn't extend the season. It just saves your plant.
It does extend the season.
does? It does
extend
Yes.
the season,
In this respect, we were harvesting raspberries about 2 weeks before the outside raspberries were producing, and then we've continued to harvest raspberries a couple weeks after the ones outside were finished. So it did extend that season. This is a picture again where we've incorporated some old studies. This previously was a very similar study where we had high tunnels over blueberries. These are blueberry plants, comparing them to the outside production. But we were able to incorporate this into a new grant. What we're doing here is a mulching study. So you see 3 different types of mulch there, different treatments. We want to see if there's any differences. And then we were also partnering with our soil and water group. They had some miscanthus, which is a great big tall grass that we could utilize and use for those. This is a picture of our elderberry planting that we had there. There's 6 varieties in there. 5 of which they are American varieties, so they're native to here.
How tall are those things? It's kind of hard to tell.
Yeah, they can. They're about 6 foot or taller.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, very tall and vigorous plants. This is some immature fruit on the elderberry plant. They're green right now, but as they mature, they'll turn that deep dark purple color.
They look like very small fruit.
Very tiny.
Very tiny.
Yes, much smaller than blueberry.
So how do you harvest that? Do you cut the whole head off?
You
or
do.
How do you?
You come through. You cut the whole head off, and then to separate. This is called a seam. There's stems underneath each one of those little tiny berries. To separate that, you freeze the whole cluster or the whole seam. You freeze the whole thing, and then when you pull back out, you can kind of tap it around, and those berries fall right off the stem.
Right.
Yeah. And that's a picture of the flower. That's what the flowers look like before they set fruit. Yeah.
How many would one plant have?
One plant, I think, averaging. This is the 2nd year we've had ours in, and they'll average probably 8 to 10 of those clusters on a plant.
What do we have
This
here?
is a picture of the Chinese Goji berry plant. Those will set real little tiny red fruit on them. In China, these are wild. These are wild plants. They grow like weeds over there. And I guess traditionally these fruit are harvested not necessarily for fresh fruit, but they're dried. And then they're either eaten like that as a dried fruit, or a lot of people make a tea out of them.
I was going to
They'll
say
steep that fruit
probably
in the
medicinal
tea.
reasons or something.
Yeah, very, very good for you.
Right.
And that's just another picture of a goji berry plant.
Well, great. And that looks like a field night or something?
Yeah, so one thing that I'd like to say about the South Centers is we're a very unique facility in the manner that we're a research and an extension center. So this here was a field night that we had in August. You're overlooking the vineyard there, and we have people come in and talk about different stuff. So.
If you want some more information, on the bottom of the screen is the website, southcenters.osu.edu/home. So you can find where you have resources. You have online resources.
We do, yep.
And then you also have classes that you can give.
Yep, and that's all on the website too, that you can see when those are coming up. We host one in the spring and one in the summer. So.
Okay. Do those cost a lot?
Not a lot. Well, it's depending, but generally around $25 for a class.
That's well worth it if you're interested at all.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay. Well,
great information.
Right. Very interesting conversation.
I think I could definitely extend on into another show or two.
Possible.
Yeah.
And next time, I think we need some
samples.
Product samples.
Okay. Yeah.
Very good idea.
Yeah, I think it'd be good. So.
Okay. Well, this has been Agri-Talk, and thanks for watching. I'm not sure what we'll have next month, but we'll be back in another 4 weeks. So we'll see you then. Thanks for watching.